Here's one of my all-time favorite projects to do. I'm using Harrisville Designs beautiful fiber for felting. And these are some of the tools that I use for needle felting. This foam pad and these needle felting needles. I have a single one I use, and then the one with a 2 needles, and then the one that has 8 needles. I'm going to make a third ball, which will be the head of my snowman, and this is exactly how I made those other 2 balls. I take the fiber and I fold it up and I make it into sort of a ball, which you can't really do because it's just fiber, but you can also rub it in between your palms for a few minutes and that starts the felting process. But I almost always use this double needle felting tool, and I think the reason I use it is because it's the most comfortable for me to hold. But really, the other tool that I have that has 8 needles on it is probably the one I could have used to make this a little bit faster. So those needles have burrs on them, notches, and what happens is the fiber gets caught on those notches and gets tangled up, and that's what causes it to felt. I like the felting to be very tight. I noticed that I've seen projects done by other felters and they don't felt it as tightly as I do, but I prefer it to be very tightly felted, and I also like the surface to be very smooth. I don't really like it to be lumpy. So I spend a little extra time getting it to that point. So here's my head for my snowman, and looks perfect. He's a little smaller than the other 2 balls, and I like doing the details on this snowman too. This is going to be the nose, so I'm using this beautiful orange, and I'm just sort of rubbing it between my fingers to get it started. And I'm just going to use the single needle for this. And you know, the first time I started doing this, I thought, boy, how the heck is this ever going to turn into a shape, you know? But it really felts up relatively quickly, and I personally really enjoy this process. I find it very meditative because it's just a repetitive motion that you don't really need a lot of materials for or skill for. So it's not very fussy work, it's just repetitive work, and I think that's what I really like about it. So I got the nose partially felted, and I'm gonna attach it to the head because it'll make it a lot easier for me to handle because it's such a small little piece. It's a little hard to felt it when I'm holding it with my big fat fingers. So I'm attaching it here to the head, and I'm going to just continue felting it because his nose is way too long, but once I start felting it a little bit more, it's going to get a lot shorter. And I'm just felting it to the head and then shaping it. So it's much easier to hold on to it, as you can see, because I have that larger piece to hold it with. So here it is. It's pretty much done, and I really like the way that came out. So that's all finished. Now the foam that I use, I actually just got that at a fabric store. It's foam that's used to make cushions, and it works great for needle felting. I think Joann's Fabric sells it as well. So I'm going to attach the eyes. I use these glass beads, these round glass beads for the eyes. And then I sew one right next to the other, and then I actually draw a black dot on the beads for the eyeball. And that really brings it to life when you put that black spot onto the white bead. But I just do that at the very end. So the eyes really make everything come alive. Anything that you make, when you put the eyes on, that's what really makes it look alive. Now I'm using these tiny beads that kind of look like cranberries for the mouth. These are also very tiny glass beads. And that needle that I'm using is a needle that's almost like a piece of hair. It's so thin. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised that I can thread that because the hole is so small, but I don't seem to have any trouble threading it. And that's what I have to use because these beads are so tiny. The hole is so tiny. Now, isn't that just so cute already? So there's his mouth and his eyes are done. And now I'm going to make a scarf on the middle ball there. I'm going to add a scarf right there. And I'm using this beautiful purple. And I'm sort of shaping it as I'm felting it right on there. And I really love doing this, adding these details on, because it's so easy, you know, just with that single needle, it's just so easy. And I like that you can give it a little bit of dimension. I don't know how to explain it. Like when I make that scarf, I'm going to make one side of it overlapping the other side. And I can make a little ridge just by felting it a little bit more in one area. And I love that you can do this sort of modeling with it. So that's a beautiful purple, by the way. And I am going to also add fringe onto the scarf. And I'm going to use my beautiful Kreinik thread that I have shown in other videos. Now, Kreinik thread is for needlepoint. I don't do needlepoint, but it's kind of a metallic, beautiful metallic, thick thread, and it's great for a lot of different things. I actually use it for a lot of different things, but here I'm going to use it for the fringe. And I have a purple that just about matches that purple there, so just finishing that up, and that other ball with a head is going to just go right on top. It looks so cute. So here's my Kreinik thread. Now I'm using a big fat needle for that because this is really thick thread, and that's what it looks like. And it's a little bit of a metallic, beautiful quality. I love this, using this. So I just poke it through the bottom of the ball there, and I'm going to do a few stitches on each end of the scarf to make it look real. The details is what really makes it unique. I like to add a lot of very high quality details. So the beads I use are glass beads. When I use crystals, I use Austrian crystals. I don't use like glass crystals. I actually use real crystals. So everybody notices that too. So here's my fringe. It looks so great, doesn't it? Love the way that looks. So I'm going to show you how I make the hat for the snowman. What I usually do is I make several hats. I'll sit down and make the hats all in one sitting. So here's some beautiful felt, wool felt that I bought, and I'm going to show you how I make a hat. Now there's a little pink hat that I already made, and I kind of try to make them all the same size. Every year I think they're a different size, but I don't have a pattern that I use for it. I just kind of eyeball it. So I need this rectangular shape that's going to curve around and make the body of the hat. And I always use this fabric tack. Now, this is an older bottle, and it's like thickened up a little bit, and I love it when it gets like that, because when you first buy it, it's a little bit more fluid and it doesn't stick right away. But that's definitely the glue that I use for a lot of things if I'm not using the glue gun. And this is going to be this small circle that goes on top of the hat. But once that glue thickens up a little bit, when it's a little older, oh, it's so great, because once you put the glue on, and whatever you put on top of it just stays there. It doesn't move around. You don't have to hold it in place for any length of time. So I am going to sew a little flower onto the hat as well. I don't always do that, but in this case I am going to do it just because I feel like it. So I do that at the very end, and I have a perfect flower for that. I have these little tiny velvet flowers that I'm going to use. So there's my hat. Now originally I was going to use this hat for this snowman that I just made, but as it turned out, I didn't really like it with the purple scarf. It was too much purple, which is amazing that I'm saying that, because my motto is you can never have too much purple. I love purple. So here I'm stringing them together. I'm using this linen, waxed linen string that I always use for my ornaments. And you know, on the video the hat looks really good, but in real life it just didn't look as good. This redder hat looked better. It was a little better contrast. So I decided to go with a red hat. So I poke the needle all the way through and then back down through the hat, and then I tie the knot at the bottom, and then I'm going to pull that string out, and I'm also going to tie a knot at the top so that it just will hold everything in place. But I do put a little glue in between the snowman pieces, the balls. Now you can needle felt the hat right onto the head, because it is wool. Well, at least the felt that I'm using is wool. I'm not sure if it would work if it's not wool felt, but this is what I'm using, so I could felt it on. So now I'm going to sew these adorable flower-shaped beads that are glass beads onto him for the buttons on the front of the snowman. These beads are really, really nice. I had a lot of these in different colors, and these are actually the last ones I have left, and I need to find more, but I love them because they're a little bit iridescent and they give a really nice kind of a sparkle to the snowman. They do have a hole in the middle, so I have to add that tiny little bead in there so that it doesn't fall off. And instead of tying a knot, I actually just sew back and forth to hold the string in place instead of trying to tie a knot. So just like this, I just go back and forth, and that never comes out. I do also, even though I sewed on those beads, I do put glue behind them just for extra support. So there he is. I love him. He's so cute. Alright, it's time to make him come to life. So I'm going to put the eyeballs on. That is a paint marker, a black paint marker. You shake it and there's a ball inside and it goes click, 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 click. And there he is. He's so cute. I'm in love. Yeah, so with just a few beautiful supplies, you can make these adorable snowmen. And here are my finished cuties. And you can see the different buttons I put on them. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And thank you so much for watching. And I hope to see you next time.